Hey guys, so before I get started here, I'd like to ask you to do me a solid favor, and that's like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. Also, go to the description if you want to click on some links there if you would like. By clicking on those links, you can find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube. If you like listening to podcasts on all your favorite podcast music affiliates like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and to an extent SiriusXM, then you'll be able to find my podcast on any one of those outlets. As well as you want to find my content on other video outlets, you can find me at Rumble, Vimeo, Odyssey, and Dailymotion. As well as you can find me over at DeviantArt.com at BVW1979, at InkBunny.net at BWRoses, and you can find me at Patreon as well. I do have a Patreon, and I do have a Venmo and a Cash App if you want to help donate in that, that way. Also, you can follow me on social media at TikTok, Twitter, aka X.com, and Blue Sky. Also, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like, I have a couple of online stores as well. I have a Fourth Wall store, link is at the top of that, and at the bottom the link to the OG Teespring store. You can find stuff there you can't find anywhere else, and basically find something for yourself or maybe a family or friend for the holidays, aka Christmas. Also, guys, during this video premiere, the live chat will be open. If you want to chime in, give your thoughts on what I'm going to say here, that'd be greatly appreciated. And also, if you want to donate with SuperChats, that will be available as well. And also, during the video premiere and afterwards, comments will be open. And if you want to still donate, but you don't get here in time for the video premiere, you can donate through the Super Thanks, which is the little heart with the $sign. Now, with that said, let's talk about something that, happened at the end of Season 2's finale. Because the last thing we saw was Charlie leaving a message for her mom on the phone. And as we have noted, and everybody else has noted, I should say, those that follow, Hell of a Boss and Has Been a Tale a lot better than people like me, due to reasons, basically they have noted and pointed out that every time Charlie has tried to call or text her mom, Lilith has not answered or replied. And we've seen that she has called her several times, if not probably more than several times, but Lilith has not responded, nor has she called her back. Basically responded via text, I should say, or called her back, to talk to her. Well, that all changed at the end of Season 2, because again, Charlie is leaving her a message, putting the phone down, not expecting her to call back, because again, she's done this several times. But then all of a sudden, just a few moments after she leaves the message, and she's walking away, to go help out, check things at, checking people in at the hotel. That's when the phone rings, and all of a sudden, it's her mom, much to her, shock and surprise. But why now? Why is Lilith calling Charlie now? And I don't know if Cartoon Universe is going to bring this up. I'm sure they will. I don't know if Sarcastic Chorus will, or Roundtable, Roundtable Vids, if you will, is going to bring this up. I'm sure they will in some passion or capacity in a video they'll do on their own, at their own time. But, the question is why now? Well, I think it's real simple. You see, we're always wondering why Lilith is in heaven. Did she make a deal with Sarah? Did she make a deal with Adam? What kind of deal did she make with probably both of them? And is that deal now null and void because of what happened with Lucifer? Hear me out. You see, when it comes to royalty in real life and in fiction, the king is always looked at as the be-all, end-all. The king is looked at as basically the beginning, the end, final say, that's it. Basically, they have more power than the queen. Even if the queen is the reason they become king, the king, even through marriage, is given more rule and power, at least in the people's eyes. They are looked at as the figure face, the figure piece, the figurehead, if you will, of that royal family. And Lucifer, looked at as the king of hell, along with Lilith, looked at as the queen, and Charlie as the princess, people would look at Lucifer as basically the be-all, end-all in that family. Like his power even surpasses just slightly, if not maybe just 10%, maybe 20% more than Lilith. In other words, he's stronger than her to a certain point. And that the only way she can achieve being more powerful than him is if something happens to weaken his power. And as we see in the finale, he does get weakened. He is basically used as a living battery, if you will, for this weapon of mass destruction. A living battery, a living, last part that's needed to boost its energy to attack heaven. If not, incinerate all of hell. So you got to imagine that's taking a toll on him. That's, taking a toll on him. So you can only imagine as well that Lilith by marriage is connected with him. One thing about these kind of marriages and stories, especially of supernaturalness or mysticalness, is that the marriage, sometimes will have the wife and the husband, the king and the queen, if you will, connected, in a way to where if something happens to the other can sense it. So in this case, with what happened with Lucifer in this season 2 finale, Lilith obviously sensed it. She sensed that he has been weakened. And now Lilith sees an opening. She sees an opening to come back and basically reclaim or claim what she feels is rightfully hers, and that's rulership over hell, at least where Charlie's at, and basically do, the things that Lucifer will not be willing to do. Because apparently Lucifer is out on a loop, with everything, or at least that's what it seems. You see, Lucifer could be set up as somebody that acts like he's out on the loop, but in reality he's not. In reality he's more in the know than he's letting on. He's just not letting on due to the safety of his daughter, or at least for the well-being of his daughter and his family by extension. But be that as it may, whether that's true or not, Lilith now sees an opportunity. She now sees an opportunity because being married to Lucifer and thus becoming the queen of hell, she has that connection to where she could sense when something happens to him, and obviously she sensed that he got weakened to the point that now she can make her move. Now she can make her move. And whatever that move is, is going to play a huge role in season 3. Now obviously people might think by hearing this, she's going to get set up as the season 3 villain. Not necessarily. I still think that might be with Alistair, because according to Viziepop, the purpose of season 3 is, the focal point of season 3 is going to be the Morningstar family and Alistair. Basically, Alistair potentially, as some people are theorizing, him trying to manipulate the Morningstar family of going, try to manipulate them to go their separate ways, that he doesn't have to worry about them standing in his way of taking full control of hell himself, because that's what he wants. That's what he wants at the end of the day. That's why, when you look at the season 2 finale, he was able to break, because of his manipulative nature that he had even when he was alive, his murderous manipulative nature, he was able to break not one but 2 bonds. The one he had with Vox, because he didn't specifically tell Vox, tell Vox, I should say. He didn't specifically tell him, exactly what he meant by no touching Charlie. He didn't specifically say exactly, a certain term or a certain, I guess you could say key point. That was one, that was one deal that got broken, one bond that got broken. And then, by having his favor to Charlie be cashed in, by having Charlie as the princess declare Vox as the ultimate, be-all, end-all sinner, that broke his bond with Rosie. That freed him from Rosie. Now he's basically where he wants to be again, or at least he's finally getting to that point to where when season 3 begins, he will be more of a threat than he normally was before. And that's why the focal point, as Lizzie puts it, for the story in season 3 is going to be all 4 of them. And mostly Alistair trying to divide them because he doesn't want no obstacles standing in his way of achieving ultimate power, in hell and being its ultimate ruler. Because that's obviously what he wants. That's obviously what he wants, and it's going to cost him in the end. It's going to cost him in the end because, like I said in the previous audio video, he might have some kind of deal made with ROO before he made a deal with Rosie. And that part of that deal with ROO is to make a deal with Rosie and allow the dominoes when the time is right to fall to break any deal he makes with an overlord, in hell. So that way the overlord by extension gets weakened very slightly, not totally, but very slightly. They get weakened to the point that when the opportunity does present itself, ROO will be able to show up and take over. And then by default, Alistair would think, hey, they're going to rule together, he's going to be gifted ultimate power, and then ROO's going to just stab him in the back and reveal that she used him as a pawn, and he's meaningless to her now. Thus, it would open his eyes and realize that basically, he let his lust for power blind him to the truth, and it's going to cost him in the end. It's going to cost him in the end. But that's for potentially season 4 for all that to occur in. But Lilith, getting back to here, Lilith calling Charlie, obviously, like I said, she sees an opportunity to come back and reclaim, or at least claim what she feels is rightfully hers. And Alistair, his role is going to be trying to, keep this division between Lilith and Lucifer, and then by extension Charlie, keep that division, wide and open, because he knows together Lilith and Lucifer definitely are going to be a challenge for him to overcome, and he might as well just forget about, trying to become the ruler of all hell, that he wants to be. And then if you combine Charlie into that equation as well, he might as well just hand over his staff and be like, I'll put on a maid outfit, just tell me what rooms to clean. That's about it. Or he might as well put on a janitorial uniform and say, I'm going to go scrub the shitters right now, just tell me what you need me to do afterwards. He might as well do that. And that's why the focal point is going to be on the family and him in season 3, according to Vizzy, from what people are saying. But yeah, getting back to Lilith though, and her showing up in season 3, basically, one can assume that it's because, as I said earlier, she senses through a connection with Lucifer that he has been weakened, and now she has the opportunity to come back down and basically take control. Finally, get things, back on track the way she sees it, for, her kingdom, for her people, for her kingdom all throughout. And that includes both Hazbin and Hellaverse. The sections of hell, in Hazbin, the sections of hell in Hellaverse. That's basically what her goal is going to be. And that might lead to a crossover as well, outside of the multi-part crossover I believe we're going to get to close out both shows when the 4 seasons come about, the 4th and final seasons come about. But yeah, I think that's why she's finally calling Charlie. Charlie's messaging her, letting her know how things are, and Lilith obviously seeing this as an opportunity and essentially probably sensing, what happened to Lucifer. She, is ready to come back now to reclaim, reclaim, claim, however you look at it, reclaim the kingdom of hell for herself, at least the city, where they reside, where the Morningstar reside, for herself, and basically do, as I mentioned earlier, what Lucifer would never do, or never had the courage to do, because he's portrayed as being out in the loop, but like I said, maybe that's what they want us to think, and he's not so out of the loop as we think he is. But yeah, I think that's why she called her, because now she's seen an opportunity to come back and take control, resume control, and basically show Charlie what she needs to do to really, not only achieve her goal with the hotel, but use it to her advantage to do the things that she feels Lucifer would not do, and maybe by extension Charlie would not do as well. But she would. She would. And at the same time, also, make sure that Alistair doesn't, try to foil anything, with her, for her or her family. In fact, that might be another reason she's going to come back as well. Not only does she sense that Lucifer is weakened, and he's not as strong as he used to be, thus making her stronger, but she could also probably, sense that, Charlie's going to need her guidance against someone like Alistair, because you can't tell me she doesn't know what Alistair's doing. She could probably see what he's doing or feel what he's doing and be like, yeah, I'm not going to let you interfere in my plans, in my family's destiny, whatever that might be. So she's going to be down there to prevent that from happening. But Alistair, being the way he is, he'll find a way to twist things around in his favor, even with her. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with her going into season 3. But this, in my opinion, is why I think she's finally connecting with Charlie again, because she knows Lucifer is weakened. He's not as powerful as he used to be. Thus, it makes her more powerful, and thus it opens the door for her to come back and do what she believes needs to be done, to achieve what she feels is the destiny of her family, and also prevent someone like Alistair from interfering with that destiny, even though he'll try as hard as he could, because, let's be honest, I still believe he made a deal with ROO before he made the deal with Rosie, because that's all part of the big master plan by ROO. She's going down there to make sure he doesn't interfere in what she feels is her family's destiny for, whatever that might be. But again, this all goes back to a lot of the storytelling of these kind of natures, to where the king is always looked at as the most powerful, the figurehead, the figure face and all that, the be-all, end-all, and that the queen is looked at as the second most powerful, if you will, outside of them, and that if anything happens to the king, then the queen resumes, the queen, unless they have a son, and that's the prince takes over. But in this case, they have a princess, and, obviously with her still around, Charlie ain't going to ascend to being queen anytime soon. So Lilith, obviously sensing that something happened with Lucifer, just like with any queen, sensing something's going to happen fatally, or something has happened fatally, or potentially is putting the king out of commission, assumes power, I should say. They assume the power and the throne. And that's what I think is going to happen with Lilith here. She's going to come down, try to basically assume the power, assume the throne, like I said, take over, where she feels she needs to take over, do what she feels needs to be done for her family's destiny, guide Charlie in what she feels is the right direction for her, and also prevent Alistair from interfering, because she could probably sense that Alistair has other motivations, other motives, if you will, for his, association with Charlie, and she's not going to let him, interfere in their plans with those motivations. But again, I think it's all because but I think also it's because Alistair is connected to ROO. He made a deal with ROO before he made it with Rosie. And I think, and when I really think about it as I'm recording this, I think Lilith senses that. She probably senses that he has that connection to ROO, but Rosie doesn't know it, and Rosie will find out eventually, and that's how Rosie will probably tell the stories. One person speculated, as I talked about in the last audio video, that's how Rosie's going to come out and talk about who ROO is and why she's such a danger. So, but overall, I think that's why Lilith finally is, calling Charlie back, why she's connecting with her, because she sees the opportunity, power-wise, to come back and claim what she feels is rightfully hers, and do what she feels is the true destiny for herself, her daughter, and her family, and basically hell itself overall. And also prevent someone like Alistair from using his motivations, his motives, to, in a murderous, manipulative manner, to prevent him from interfering, because perhaps she, senses, and if not knows, he has a connection with ROO that he made, deal-wise before making it with Rosie. So that might be, that might be the case overall at the end of the day. But we'll see. We'll see. Because as they like to say, and I know people find this annoying when it comes to these kind of shows, animation takes time. So it might be a while, might be a year, might be 2, maybe 3. Some people are estimating 2029. I think it'll be a lot sooner. Because why is Vizzy talking so much about what season 3 is going to be already if she didn't have that already set and ready to go? Down the pipe, very, much sooner down the pipeline than expected. But That's just my thoughts on it, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are if you haven't already in the live chat. Do you think this is exactly why Lilith is finally contacting with Charlie, because she sees an opportunity to, grab that power, claim what she feels is her, take her family in the, direction she feels their destiny is meant to be in, or meant to go in, as well as even prevent Alistair from, interfering because she senses he has that connection with ROO? Let me know. Let me know if you haven't already in the live chat. Let me know in the comments. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. But let me know. I'd love to hear your theories and speculations. In Cartoon Universe, Sarcastic Chorus Roundtable, if you guys are watching and listening, I'd love to hear your replies to this as well. If you believe the same stuff, I'm sure you do. Give me your thoughts. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you later. And until then, do me a solid favor. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And click on the link in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube and to support me outside of YouTube as well. But guys, that's all I'm going to say. Give me your thoughts. And until then, I am out.